Hi, this is Marty Gold with a commentary on the 2023 Manitoba provincial election. Well, what a surprise it was to hear the name Gary Doer brought up, and not just in a referential way, but in a personal, he's here, let the pigeons loose kind of way. When Gary Doer was trotted out, wheeled out damn near, for a little presser, being told that he would become, or the media being told he would become the advisor on Canada-US trade if the NDP is elected to government. Now, this was a little unusual to see Gary Doer coming out of a career as an ambassador. I don't remember if they usually get involved in politics or not. I think maybe in the old days they didn't, but nowadays I guess they do. Trying to rebrand the modern day NDP as the same party of Gary Doer is preposterous in any way, shape, or form. Although Tom Broadbeck, for one, at the Free Press, said that Doer was in fine form coming out of a 14-year exile. Well, others describing it as a pay-to-play scam lends its credibility to Kinew, and although they say voluntary in terms of his potential service to advise on trade, everybody starts rubbing shoulders with everybody else, and we all know that sooner or later somebody gets their hand shaken the special way. One has to understand, as Ken Waddell explained in December of 2014, that the Premier's office has been controlled by the union since 1999. That was in 2014. But the difference was when Gary Doer, who was the MGEU head of the Government Employees Union, when he became Premier, he was able to keep the unions under control. He was able to hide their influence. Greg Selinger didn't have the skill to do that. So the union control of the NDP in Manitoba became very obvious. And it's even more obvious today. So the party that Gary Doer led has no relationship to the party that bears the letters NDP and blazes the color orange now. So while some say this is a boon to the NDP, others may take a dimmer view. For all the nice things that are said about Gary Doer, the fact is that he was ruthless as Premier. His idea of what was best for the province, remember this? If the value of your home has gone up, then the NDP's done really good for you. Well, we know what that led to. Housing starting to spiral out of the grasp of the working class, people entering the workforce, students, graduating students from universities. That is what started. And then the land transfer tax, also a lovely present from Gary Doer. He helped create the housing crisis we feel today, especially for those with low incomes. Gary Doer? Is that the guy that referred to the Manitoba Conservatives as knuckle draggers? What a statesman. That's a great guy to be trotting out, soliciting votes. You know, in the good old days, he would step off a plane and find out that his offer of tax breaks to Air Canada to save Air Canada jobs, that his offer of tax breaks was leaked, walking right off the plane, and got waylaid by that. Gary Doer never responded once to personally delivered invitations to appear on the Great Canadian Talk Show when I was hosting that program in the Drive on Kick FM. I had my own dealings with Doer. This is, which generally, by the way, were pleasant until it turned more into the journalist matter, the radio deal, where we wanted some accountability from him as Premier and got none. Whether it was hallway medicine, whether it was horrific internal bureaucratic blunders. Now, this is odd, the way CBC described this. Doer says he's convinced after speaking with others who've met him that Kinew is open to advice and would lead an open government. So Gary Doer apparently endorsed Wab Kinew, even though he's never met Wab Kinew. And you see also that the NDP, they aren't the ones being endorsed. It's Wab Kinew being endorsed. And this is causing fractures within the New Democratic Party, I assure you. There are a lot of New Democrats whose noses were put out of joint by the personal endorsement by Lloyd Axworthy of Wab Kinew at the beginning of the campaign. Axworthy doesn't give everybody, his political career didn't give everybody, especially on the political left, that warm, fuzzy feeling. And in fact, you look at Axworthy's judgment, who was the last person he endorsed? Oh yeah, Glenn Murray. By the time independent media, along with CBC in this case, had finished revealing what went on with Glenn Murray in Caledon, Ontario, when he tried to intimidate the mayor of that town about putting land on the market for building projects, and what happened at the Pembina Institute when he supposedly left political life, all of a sudden that endorsement that Lloyd Axworthy gave of the sterling character of Glenn Murray went, the air was out of the balloon. And here's Gary Doer endorsing Wab Kinew when it appears he barely knew he. Did I get that right? So why would you trot out Gary Doer, the former Manitoba Premier, former Ambassador of the United States? Well, it's to shore up the NDP vote. Because it's not drawing a single vote from any conservative voter previously, and it surely isn't really going to move any liberals around. Liberals are not going to waffle to the left when their choice is to waffle to Wab Kinew. Kinew's extravagant spending promises, especially the absolutely uncoordinated promises on healthcare, did not do him any good. Maybe he could have taken some advice from Gary Doer on that one, I don't know. Meanwhile, among the attack dogs, they claim that the response to Gary Doer, to Wab's recruiting Gary Doer, they headed straight to the gutter, said one, a reputed educator at the University of Winnipeg. This is the dark, ugly, racist side of the PCs, openly encouraged by Pallister and tolerated by Stephenson. A stupid vote-losing strategy. Well, as one commentator pointed out, a voter-losing strategy would be the NDP losing $400 million to the East Side Road and the Bomber Stadium. That road up the East Side that Doer mandated, the United Nations this. Right? Those ridiculous hydro projects that put us deep, deep, deep into debt. The road taking the long way, $240 million with little to no economic development. SNC-Lavalin, meanwhile, pocketed a 65% consulting fee and $40 million, according to sources, in unproven expenditures. So you trot out Gary Doer, you trot out the sins of Doer, you trot out the mistakes of Doer, you trot out the meanness of Doer. So maybe it'll solidify some of the NDP vote that's already been alienated by the complete union takeover of the NDP, the old-style Labourites, I'm saying. But it's not going to really move any other votes that I can tell anywhere around, just because Gary Doer has shown up to endorse somebody that he says, based on what other people say about him, he sounds like a really swell guy who'll run an open government. How open will a government be that has cabinet members like Tom Lindsay, Nahanni Fontaine? Should we speculate about any of the other cabinet members? Potential ministers that would come from the candidates that he's rolled out? Not a lot of depth on that bench. Oh yeah, you'll have the odd school trustee maybe that they think they can throw in as Minister of Education. Maybe they can find some third-rate lawyer to throw in as Minister of Justice. Gary Doer actually was lucky because he had a bench where he could move some pieces around. Wab Kinew wouldn't have that luxury either. So again, to compare Kinew with Doer to try to create those kinds of hopes, vastly misplaced on the part of the NDP, and certainly a lot of people not swilling that Kool-Aid. The biggest losing strategy of all is to call anybody who doesn't support the NDP racist, and the NDP candidates have been at it, the supporters, the acolytes have been at it, and in that regard, they should maybe not keep it up. The race is tighter than you know. There are certainly some ridings that are at issue. I'm going to get into that in the next installment of these audio commentaries. And as always, I'll have more news, information, opinion analysis for you here with WinnipegTribune.ca in the near future.